Hello and welcome to episode number 45 of Chel Squared. I'm your host, Andrew Chel, and as per usual, we've got a ton to talk about today, recording Wednesday night as opposed to Thursday. Caps Canes in crunch time right now, tied at 3, heading into overtime. Big moments in this one. Before we get into it here, same spiel every week, but the importance, as always, at a high level. Please follow the podcast on Twitter at Chel Squared and on Facebook at Chel Squared for more hot takes, news by future guests, poll questions, and a whole lot more. If you want to follow my personal Twitter, it's at Chelney Andrew. Please rate the show if you enjoy listening. It means more to me than I can put into words. And as an incentive, I will give you a shout out on social media and on the podcast. If you like the show on SoundCloud, give it a rating on Apple Podcasts. Follow it on Spotify, etc. Big thanks to Bobby B10 for leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. And thank you to Joshua Rea, hope I'm pronouncing that right, for liking episode 44 on SoundCloud. The show is everywhere. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play. We're anywhere and everywhere. If the show isn't on your preferred platform, shoot me a DM or a tweet, and I will put it on there. Though I am a SiriusXM employee, this podcast is not affiliated in any way with the company. The opinions expressed in this podcast are mine and mine alone, and do not necessarily reflect the views of SiriusXM. If you're angry at my takes, direct them to me and me alone, please and thank you. Round 1 is about to be in the books. Round 2 tomorrow for us, tonight for you. What a start to the playoffs. This has been that Sharks Knights Game 7 last night. Well, for us it was last night. Was one of the wildest games I've ever seen. Initially, I said Knights will sweep. Then I said Knights in 5, but then Martin Jones actually showed up in games 5 and 6, and then the Knights thoroughly imploded in game 7 to let San Jose advance to play Colorado in round number 2. Oh, and we'll also get to the 5-minute major penalty. Don't you worry, we've got plenty to say on that one. The Bruins beat the Leafs in dominating fashion in Game 7. I'm going to say this topic for the show, but I'm absolutely heated about this, and I would like to introduce my guest before taking up some time here to talk about that. Stars beat the Preds in 6. I initially said Stars in 7. Check mark there. Look, Preds got outplayed. Rene got outplayed. Ben Bishop, absolutely incredible. Stars blue, round 2 fights. Bruins and Jackets, if I can speak correctly. Bruins and Jackets meeting in round 2. Like most people, I said Lightning will win pretty easily, but boy, was I wrong. Initially, I said Bruins in 6 or 7 in the Leafs series, so check mark there. Leafs are stuck in purgatory once again, still not winning a round since 2004, plus the Islanders are still waiting on the victor of the Caps and Hurricane series that is currently happening right now in overtime. Big stuff there. Full predictions to be talked about for round 2 matchups. And also, by the way, Buffalo apparently rumored to be looking to hire Jacques Martin as head coach. Seriously? You have no one else? You have no other people that you have in mind besides Jacques Martin? Can we get it together, Buffalo? Can we get it together? Because that's going to be a terrible, terrible hire if you go that route. We'll get into all of that, the poll question, and a whole lot more. Joining me this week is WEEI and CLNS Bruins reporter Evan Marinofsky. Evan, how are you? Welcome to the show.
I am great, Andrew. We've tried to coordinate this for a while. We try to do this like a month ago. It just didn't work, and now we're here. It's great. I'm happy to be on. I couldn't pick a better time, honestly, because right now, obviously, as you ran through the topics, there's literally so much to talk about. There's so much going on in hockey. There's really hockey going on as we're talking to our right, as this is recorded, as you said, Wednesday night. But yes, there's so much, and I can't wait to dive into all of it, especially Bruins Leafs.
Before we get into super nitty-gritty here, Evan, you also run your own sports news site called the Marinofsky Report. Tell me why everything is in caps. Why is a website constantly yelling at me? Why are you yelling at me when I'm reading your articles, Evan? Why aren't you using your inside voice?
Ironically enough, the only caps are headlines. If you look at the website, the headline is in all caps, but the stories below it are not caps. They are just regular lowercase letters.
I know that. I read your website. I know that.
Well,
but why?
you.
But why is your headline? Why are headlines in caps?
It's actually modeled after the Drudge Report. The Drudge Report, I don't know if you know what that is. It's been a news website since the late 90s. It's one of the most highly trafficked websites in the world. If you look into it, it's fascinating. It's run by one guy. He updates it all day. It's world news, politics, sports, everything. Mine's just Boston sports, but I think the idea, the concept of the website is tremendous. So I decided, why not make it Boston sports? Worst comes to worst, it just looks good to have. But I do get some solid amount of viewership. And people do seem to like it. The reason I wish I could change it when it went to Twitter so it wasn't in all caps, but it is, and it looks crazy. But I like to be sort of, creative with it, use exclamation points, the ... because that's sort of what Drudge does. But yeah, I like to have fun with it. It's kind of like my personality, very, out there and exciting, and some stuff isn't. I actually just updated it before I came on with you. So yeah, it's sort of a mix of everything. It's fun. I like it.
Get my headlines yelling at me. No such inside voice found.
Don't take it personally.
Error 404. No inside voice found. So Bruins Leafs series here. Obviously, Game 7 went to Boston in pretty one-sided fashion here. 5-1 the final score. What were your biggest takeaways from that game as a Bruins reporter, and also what did you see from the Leafs side of things that didn't work out?
I think the Bruins got very lucky in that game and very fortunate, because all series they've been looking for the bottom six to really come through. And Game 7 at 100% happened. They did. Like, a big thing, and Bruce Cassidy said this at the beginning of the series, was what happens is in these series when you have two really good lines on each team, they sort of cancel each other out. And at the end, it's what do you have for depth guys? And the Bruins' depth won. Especially in Game 7. You have Joakim Nordstrom somehow scoring. I mean, that no one could have foreseen that. Nobody could have. Then you have Marcus Johansson, who's been a non-factor.
It was a terrible goal, but it was an awful goal to give up. But yes, he did score the first goal of Game 7. But man, Anderson, you can't be doing your best Pecorino impression, man. You have to be on top of your game.
Well, exactly. But I think the storyline of that goal is more the fourth line sequence. You have Nola Chari batting the puck down to keep it in off the failed Travis Dermott clear. And then you have Sean Corrali dangling to the net, and he kind of fails at it, but he at least attempted. Matt Grzelcyk pinching in at the point to keep the puck in. And then you have Nordstrom. And I think the big thing on that goal also was not Morgan Riley, Jake Gardner just let Joakim Nordstrom shoot that. Just let him shoot it. I mean, he was a stick's length away from him, and the poke check was late. He was not on him, not in the right position, and he totally let Joakim Nordstrom have a free 4 seconds to shoot that puck. So I think the storyline was sort of the fourth line, and that was the two biggest storylines coming out of Game 7 for the Bruins, at least, was Tuukka Rask, which I wrote about for WEEI.com. I thought he was stupendous. And then you have the fourth line coming up big. And then you have the third line as well. But then on the Leafs side of things, I think the Leafs sort of just got unlucky. Their depth did not win them that game. Jake Gardner reverted back to his old ways, especially on that Marcus Johansson goal. And then, as I said earlier, on the Joakim Nordstrom goal. Frederik Andersen, I think, obviously would want the first goal back. Second goal would probably want back as well. The Johansson wraparound wasn't the best. He was screened. The Sean Corrali goal, I was surprised because Anderson's glove is very good typically, and it has been all series, and he just missed it. He didn't even put his glove up, he put his elbow, which I've never understood why goalies do that, and I played hockey for a while, humble brag, and I don't understand why goalies do that. But yeah, the Leafs, I just think the Leafs got out-coached. They got outplayed in Game 7, and the way the series sort of manifested itself was... I think the pivotal game of that series was Game 4, because the Leafs actually kind of outplayed the Bruins in that game. If you remember correctly, the Bruins won 6-4, but ironically enough, the Leafs did play better, if I'm getting that right. I think that was Game 4. And I think, the Leafs definitively won Games 1, 3, and 5. The Bruins definitively won 2, 2 and 6 and 7, and it came down really to that game 4 that was the big one. That was the closest one, and the Bruins pulled it out. So overall thoughts, I think, I thought the Leafs actually kind of maybe outplayed them for the majority of that series. I was surprised. I didn't expect the Bruins to win in Game 7, I'm going to be really honest.
I really want to talk about Mike Babcock here because, I talked about this a little bit on Twitter after the game, and I really, really, really need to talk about this because I truly can't believe that Mike Babcock hasn't been fired yet. It's been what, 24 hours since the loss, and I truly have never. I have seen worse coaching because I'm a Rangers fan and I've watched Alain Vigneault coach, but Mike Babcock's deployment in that series against Boston was a disgrace. It was an absolute disgrace. You can't have Austin Matthews and John Tavares and all these guys and play them average minutes in a Game 7. You can't roll 4 lines when you're down a goal, when you're down 2 goals in a Game 7. You, as a head coach, you are not allowed to do that. You have those top guys for a reason, for them to step up in big moments. Matthews scored a goal, put him back out there. Get him the ice time, get him the touches. When the Leafs had the power play, what do they do on the power play? They put all their eggs in one basket on the first power play unit, and then they put their secondary lines on the second power play unit. But they also put their top power play unit on the ice for like 50 seconds out of the 2 minutes. That's not how you win hockey games. If you are putting all of your talent on one power play unit, have them on the ice for at least a minute 30, minute 35, not 50 seconds here. That's a joke. That is a joke. If you're down a goal, if you're down 2 goals, you're looking for something here. You can't do that as a head coach of a National Hockey League team, especially if you're Mike Babcock. You know better than that. You've been to this situation before so many times now but you should figure out that, hey, if we are putting literally all of our skilled guys on one power play unit, maybe put them on the ice for longer than 50 seconds. It's a joke of deployment. It's pathetic. It really is. And Toronto, I don't want to say that they should have won that game, but if deployed properly, I feel like at least it would have been a much closer game. I don't know if Toronto would have won. There's obviously a million what ifs that we can go into, but if deployed properly, bare minimum, it would have been a much closer game. And Mike Babcock, I just don't see why people are so into Mike Babcock, right? He came into the NHL in 02-03, came one win away from winning the cup with the Ducks in 03, lost to the Devils, and then got fired after next season. Then he got hired in Detroit, right? Won the cup in 08, lost to the Penguins in 09, and then subsequent years, right? You take a look at the 09-10 season with the Red Wings, right? 102 points, lost second round, right? Then you go to the 10-11 season, 104 points, lost in the second round. Then you have the 11-12 season with the Red Wings, 102 points, lost in the first round in 5 games. Then you have the shortened season, lost in the second round. Then you have, again, the 2 final Detroit years that he was there, 93 points, 5 games, first round exit, and then 14-15, 100 points, 7-game first round series. He blows that first round exit once again. Then he goes to Toronto, doesn't make the playoffs in the first round because that team was lost beyond belief. Understandable, he didn't make the playoffs then. 16-17 with the Maple Leafs, 95 points, 6 games, first round exit. 17-18, 105 point season, 7 games, first round exit. 18-19, 100 points, 7 games, first round exit. He hasn't made the conference final since 08-09, and he's had very talented teams. I truly don't get the love affair with Mike Babcock. I truly don't, because you can't you cannot exit in the first round of the playoffs after adding John Tavares and Jake Muzzin to an already very good team, right? You have great goaltending in Anderson. You have very good offense. You have pretty okay defense but you make it better with Jake Muzzin, and you still get bounced in the first round. At a certain point, you can argue, oh, it's the playoff format, they got the wrong end of the stick, whatever. There's only so many times you can say that until you look in the mirror and say, hey, maybe it's something that we are doing that is preventing us from winning hockey games. And in the Maple Leafs case right now, it's Mike Babcock.
Take a breather. You're right, though. I mean, you're not wrong. Babcock's the most overrated coach in hockey. I think that's like pretty widely agreed upon now. I mean, those Red Wings teams in the late 2000s, early 2010s were like just juggernauts. He doesn't do well getting past the first round. You sort of covered all the bases. What I will say is, though, I can relate to this because Claude Julien used to roll 4 lines like it was his job. And it used to blow my mind that he'd have the Greg Campbell line out there in crunch time. Now, ironically enough, Cassidy at this point is so good at rolling his 4th line with Kuraly, Achari, and either Wagner or Nordstrom that he sort of he like always knows when to deploy them. Like, for instance, Kuraly's goal last night or in Game 7 was scored against the John Tavares line. So it's little things like that where Cassidy just has a knack with those guys, but they have a real dilemma. You have Kyle Dubas, the GM, who's stats-oriented. You have Mike Babcock, the head coach, who is this hardline, old-school hockey coach. They have already gone at each other in the media this year. They've already done that. So now it's a point of, I think, ownership there is going to say, who do we pick? Do we want stats-oriented Dubas, or do we want hard-line, old-school coach in Babcock? I think 100%. In this case, I think because of Babcock's inability to get past these first rounds. Now, I'll give him not getting past the Capitals the first year. That was 16-17. They were just happy to be there. But you have last year. You have this year. I think you'd probably keep Dubas. At least that's what I think they'd want to do.
Sure.
The NHL is heading towards a faster game, stats-oriented, advanced stats, all that fun stuff. And I think a coach like Babcock, again, like, they always read his accolades like, oh, he coached the Canadian Olympic team to gold medal. Well, I could coach the friggin' Canadian team to a gold medal. This bottle of Sprite could coach the Canadian team to the gold medal because they're stacked. They are completely stacked. Just don't give them John Cooper because we saw what he did this year with the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Sure.
But at any rate, it just goes to show that you need a competent coach. And I think Babcock right now, he has to be on the hot seat. I mean, he has to be, especially after last night, especially after the series. I mean, he was questioned about Patrick Marleau being on the ice at the very end, and he walked out of his press conference. He walked out. He said, "Oh, we like Patrick." Well, I don't even know what his accent is. God only knows. But he said, he's like, we want Patrick Marleau out there, and then he just said, "All right, guys, goodbye." He took a sip of his water and left because he didn't like the question. I mean, it just goes to show what they're possibly headed for up in Toronto. And I don't think I think it's completely safe to say that he could or will at some point get fired.
Dmitry Filipovich tweeted this tweet yesterday, and it really is a great summation of what Babcock did in Game 7. He said Mike Babcock can get away with it when he's coaching Team Canada and they've got 4 different top units, but him taking Matthews, Marner, and Tavares off the ice halfway through the power plays to get 39-year-old Patrick Marleau out there is legitimately insane. And that is a perfect summation of the terrible deployment that led to, or was the biggest reason why, the Maple Leafs got absolutely destroyed in game number 7. And this leads me into my poll question for this week, which is, who is the biggest to blame for Toronto's game 7 loss? Now, this got almost 140 votes, and the 4 choices were Mike Babcock, Freddie Anderson, Jake Gardiner, Patrick Marleau. Now, also, I should have put Nazem Kadri on there in hindsight, should have put him on there. Only had 4 choices. What are you going to do? I also want to really quickly here, talk about how Babcock put William Nylander on the third line with 39-year-old Patrick Marleau, who can't skate anymore, and Connor Brown, who's not great offensively. I mean, can we figure this out, Toronto? Can we figure out that, hey, maybe a speedy winger needs speedy players to play with? I mean, I don't know. I don't coach in the NHL, right? So maybe I'm missing something here, but I feel like you probably should put Nylander with people that know how to skate and know how to score if you want him to do well. You can't put him with 39-year-olds and a defensively minded player and expect him to, one, stack the score sheet, and two, I mean, try to do anything offensively, because he would go 1-on-3 a lot of the times because Marleau can't keep up and Connor Brown can't score a lot of the times.
What's funny is I didn't really notice Patrick Marleau in the series.
Exactly.
Like, nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I didn't even notice him at the end on the ice because I didn't do anything. He's on the ice? Like, I don't even remember. So the poll question. Now, for the sake of playing devil's advocate and bring up a different perspective, and just voting off of what I directly remembered, Jake Gardiner, to me, is such a problem for the Maple Leafs, and he has been for so long. I mean, his defensive blunder led to Jake DeBrusk scoring the game-winning goal last year in the Game 7 that they lost in 2018. This year, as I already mentioned, you have the Joakim Nordstrom mess-up, which not a lot of people are talking about, but they should. That's not how you play defense. There was nobody in front of the net. Joakim Nordstrom was the side of the net. You get on him, and there was no effort by Jake Gardiner. That goes to show that him and Dermott have zero chemistry. I have more chemistry with an umbrella than he has with Travis Dermott. I mean, just threw it behind his back. Johansson literally just picked it up, went around, and scored. I mean, it was just so blatantly his fault. I think Jake Gardiner, he's a -5 last year. I don't know what his minus was this year. Obviously was a minus. I just think that Jake Gardiner represents their biggest problem, and that's their defense core. Like, for the first 6 games, I kept saying, is Jake Muzzin a number one, or are the Bruins making him look like a number one? And I think in Game 7, it sort of feels like they made him look like a number one. I think another thing that's interesting about the Leafs is, yes, they got John Tavares. 100% improved the team. But with the Leafs, that wasn't their problem. It's the problem with the Leafs is their defense. So it's like in the offseason, they had big biceps and their legs were small. And instead of working out the legs more to get them to the place that their biceps were, they just got their biceps bigger. They lifted more. So they walk in with this better offense, but it's the same crap defense. And if Rask is on his game, which he was for 99% of that series, then you're not going to get anywhere. They need to find a way to bolster the defense. 100% they need to find a way to do it. Whether it's a trade, whether it's a free agent. I haven't looked at the free agent class yet, but whether it be that, whether it be the draft, they have to find a way to bolster that defense because there's, Jake Muzzin's their number one. Morgan Riley's also a number one, and it's just they're not good in their own zone. If you notice, the Bruins, Torrey Krug is an offensive juggernaut. He's not great in his own end. They pair him with Carlo typically because Carlo is amazing in his own end. If you look at a lot of the Bruins D pairings, they've set up a defense core where they have a lot of guys who can skate. They have 3 guys who can skate the puck well, and they have 3 guys who defend really well, and they offset each other. You have Grzelcyk, Krug, and McAvoy, and then you have on the other side you have Chara, Carlo, and typically Kevin Miller, John Moore last night. It typically depends. But that's what the Leafs have to go for. If the Leafs want any chance at beating the Bruins next year, because they'll probably be playing again in the first round because of the format, they need to bolster the defense, and Babcock needs to figure out how to play his first 2 lines more than his bottom 2.
It's terrible. I mean, the 4 choices again for the poll was Mike Babcock, Freddie Anderson, Jake Gardiner, and Patrick Marleau. Jake Gardiner, which was your choice, got 11% of the vote. Mike Babcock, 68% of the vote went to him. If I could vote in my own poll, I would have. I mean, I guess I can because I run my podcast account on my own account, but I feel like that's cheating. I shouldn't be voting my own poll here. Freddie Anderson got 18% of the vote. I mean, listen, he played very well. Except for a couple of goals here and there. The first goal in Game 7 was bad. The second goal in Game 7, he was screened on. I mean, I guess you could argue that, you should have had that. But, I mean, He was screened. You could sometimes fault the goalie for not fighting through it, but I mean, in that situation, I don't think you could really blame him on that one. The third goal, I forgot who scored that top cheddar goal, but I mean he labeled that for the top 100%. Corner. You could argue, oh well, Anderson should have had his glove up or whatever, but that was a perfect shot. That was a ripper. And
I think it surprised Anderson a lot more than maybe he should have had it. That shot came out of there was just one quick move to the left and top corner. I mean, that was nuts.
The biggest thing that I've gotten in a response from my tweets yesterday was, oh, well, who are you going to get to replace him or whatever? Well, I just want to point something out to those people really quickly. So today, Wednesday, the Marlies beat the Rochester Amherst earlier tonight, which means in the 4 years Sheldon Keefe has coached that team, this is the fourth time they've advanced to the second round of the postseason. By the way, the Marlies won the Calder Cup last year. They don't have to look far, and Sheldon Keefe is going to be sought after by a lot of teams in this league if Toronto doesn't scoop him up quickly. And if they don't do it this season, I have a strong suspicion that by next season, when they do can Mike Babcock, that he won't be in the Marlies system anymore. That he's going to be coaching for the rival team while the Maple Leafs are going to go try and bite their elbow, but they won't be able to because they won't be able to reach it.
And what's funny is the Bruins did a very similar thing with Cassidy. They brought Cassidy up from Providence. He had a lot of success. I think the Leafs do need a new coach. I think definitely going into the system works. Also, back to Freddie Anderson. Frederik Anderson made some huge saves in this series and made some really spectacular saves from every game. It was crazy because the Bruins have a more stable offensive system in some way. The Leafs are very run and gun. They're fast. They're quick. A lot of cross ice passes, 2-on-1s, that whole sort of thing. The Bruins, I think a more stable system. You have the bumper position, you have the one-timers, sort of stuff like that. Frederik Anderson, I think a lot of those games could have been much different had Frederik Anderson not made some of the big saves. I think it was I forget which game he had where Bergeron had an open net and Anderson just snatched the glove up. I mean, it was crazy. So, no, I don't put this on Anderson. I don't put this on Marleau. Marleau's 39. I mean, his time is gone. That's kind of the team's fault for putting him out there, and Babcock, obviously. To me, it's down to Babcock and Gardner. I think I'd probably give the edge to Babcock more because he rolls all four lines. But on the ice, I would give it to the guy on the ice. I'd give it to Gardner. I mean, Jesus, come on, dude.
A couple of the responses to the poll question. Tim Kalinowski, Syracuse hockey legend, at TimmyCal12, he replied, Kyle Dubas / Brendan Shanahan as the biggest names to blame for Toronto's Game 7 loss, which, I mean, I guess you could argue Kyle Dubas a little bit because he addressed the scoring, which wasn't the issue, like you said, but he also got Jake Muzzin, which was a great trade for Toronto, and he did pretty well in that series. I mean, there were a couple of spots here and there, but for the most part, Jake Muzzin played very well. But you can't be playing Ron Hainsey top 2 minutes. You can't be playing Zaitsev top 4 minutes. And in that
Zaitsev's awful.
Oh yeah, I mean the grass is green, the sky is blue. I mean, this is not groundbreaking material here that we're talking about. But there's, in that regard, sure, you can blame Dubas, you can blame Shanahan for not addressing the blue line as much as perhaps he should have. But on the other hand, if Babcock just plays his stars, maybe we wouldn't be talking about this. So, I mean,
but I'd be out of work, Andrew. I'd have nothing to do. The Bruins got to win. I gotta work.
I tweeted back at him. I said, elaborate. And he said, their kryptonite has been the same for a while now. Not deep enough offensively and defensively. Also, the playoff path runs through Boston, Tampa Bay. So to me, it still sits on management to give them better personnel. Example, Sean Kuraly. Who is Toronto's Kuraly? Now, I don't know who Toronto's Kuraly is. Do you know who Toronto's Kuraly is?
Well, they have that Frederick Gauthier who's like 6'6", and he's a paper tiger. He's like Bambi out there. I mean, David Krejci just rubbed him out into the boards. It looked like Gauthier got caught in a merry-go-round. I mean, he got literally toppled. So their fourth line it was whatever. It just didn't make it. They just were there to give the starters. They were there to give the first two lines rest. It wasn't. Like, the Bruins' fourth line makes a real impact. Chris Wagner, who didn't play last night because pretty much they'd rather have the speed aspect with Joakim Nordstrom and Carson Coleman in the lineup, but Chris Wagner won 7th Player of the Year. You know, Sean Kuraly and Noel Acciari have been legitimate forces all year. Until Kuraly went down, I think in mid-March, Cassidy was rolling that line against top lines from across the league. I remember when they played Washington, that Ovechkin line, Kuraly's line, played them, and they played them well. I think the Bruins lost like 3-2 or something, but they played them really well. And it goes to show that the Maple Leafs need more. Their fourth line made no difference. The third line, Nylander, he had that breakaway goal in Game 1. I also want to point out Mitch Marner had no goals from Games 2 to 7. He starts out with 2 in Game 1. I think he had 2, and then he just gets nothing the rest of the series. They shut him down. I know he had 2 great chances last night in one sequence on Rask. The Rask totally shut down, but still, you know, there's a lot of blame to go around up in Toronto. I'm very interested to see what path they take. You have to pay guys like Marner and people like that are going to cost an arm and a leg, as Brad Marchand pointed out. But I'm very interested to see where Toronto goes, what they do, and where they're headed.
Before we get this whole episode on the Toronto-Boston situation, I want to have a couple of quick final thoughts here, and then we're going to move on. So another reply to the poll question was friend of the show, Ford Hatchet, at Ford Hatchet on Twitter. He said, Nazem Kadri deserves the most blame. You can all go home now, which I feel like is a fair statement to make, considering that was an egregious hit, and it was the right thing to do to just suspend him for the rest of the first round. And also, I mean, he's a skilled guy that Toronto really could have used in the rest of the series, especially in Game 7, and he wasn't available. And one more thing that I want to add to this really quickly is the Leafs have just under $4 million in cap space right now, according to Cap Friendly, the site that I use pretty much every episode until the end of time because they're fantastic.
They're great.
They have issues. To put it lightly, they have issues. Marner needs a contract. Kapanen needs a contract. Janssen needs a contract. Tyler Ennis probably will be cheap, but still needs a contract. He's going to be a UFA. Jake Gardiner needs a contract. Ron Hainsey, shoot him into the sun. Ozhiganov, I mean, I don't know. I don't know enough about Ozhiganov to say anything about him, but he needs a contract. Hutchinson's probably going to be gone. But I mean, Marner in and of itself is going to be a ton of money. So, and I'm willing to bet. I mean, I'm not a betting man. I don't bet. But however, I would like to think that some team is probably going to offer Sheep Marner because of the cap debacle that Toronto's in. And also, Patrick Marleau's contract expires at the end of next season, which is a huge problem for Toronto because he makes $6.25 million a year. If his contract expired... Oh yeah, terrible contract. If it expired at the end of this season, that would give Toronto a lot more breathing room. Not a whole lot more, but a considerable amount. But because his contract ends at the end of next season, I mean, this is going to be. I don't even know how Dubas can figure this out because Tavares is making $11 million. Nylander's making a lot of money. You got Matthews obviously making $11.5 million at the start of next season and beyond. I mean, there's a lot of players that need a lot of money, and the Leafs are kind of running out.
Yeah, and what's funny is I just looked up Cap Friendly, completely forgot about this. Nathan Horton is on their salary for $5.3 million through not just this year, but next year, which I just totally spaced. I totally forgot about that. Yes, You have 11 million going to Tavares. You have 10 million this year, and then 6.9 next year going to William Nylander, which is a whole nother topic about how bad that was handled and stupid they were. Just so much blame to go around. The Marleau one looks terrible. I mean, they're in cap jail. They're in a really tough spot. I don't know how they're going to get out of it. They have a problem. And then you have Matthews making 11.6 next year, going from $925,000 to $11.6 million. I would kill to have that that upgrade in my life. But
I would give me the $900,000. I mean,
I'll take that too.
Forget $11 million. Just give me $900K, man. I would love that. I'll
eat that up.
I mean, give me that $100K. I would love the $11 million. Don't get me wrong, but $900K would be sensational. I could pay my student loans. I mean, that would be fantastic. Also, the Leafs are still paying Phil Kessel. By the way, they're paying Phil Kessel $1.2 million until the end of the 2021-22 season, which is a joke. It's a joke. The whole situation's a joke. And I mean, Kyle Dubas is a smart guy, and obviously not everything about this is his fault, but he's gonna have to figure out a way to get out of this. And I would not want to be him in this situation at all. Now, again, before we spend the entire episode talking about two teams here, we have to move on to the second round of the playoffs here. We got the Dallas Stars, who, I mean, I said a couple weeks ago that they would beat the Preds in 7. They ended up winning in 6, and I picked the Blues to win. I forgot, maybe 6 or 7, I can't remember. But I did pick the Blues to win, and they did win. So, Colorado out of nowhere winning, beating the Flames in 5. The Sharks somehow imploding. The Sharks somehow beating the imploding Vegas Golden Knights and winning in 7. I want to talk about the Vegas Golden Knights here for just a quick second here, right? A lot of people are up in arms about that major penalty, which is fair. That's a totally fair thing to do, and if you want to do that, that's fine. You were up 3-1 in this series. You had a chance to win in Game 5. You didn't do that. You had a chance to win at home in Game 6. Well, you didn't do that either. And then you go to San Jose, right? You're up 3-0. It's the middle of the third period, 10 minutes to go, or some 10 and change or whatever it was. You're up 3-0 on the home team. The fans are dead. The team looks dead. It looks over. And then Cody, here's the thing. Was that a 5-minute penalty? No. But Cody Eakin shouldn't have his arms holding his stick up high like that. Why would he do that off the draw? You should. Mites know better than that. Pee-wee knows better than that. Why is his stick up high like that? There's no reason to put your stick up high after a draw. Zero reason. Whether that leads to a penalty or not, it's a dumb thing to do. And one thing led to another, and then Eakin with the shove, and then Stastny with the follow-up, which, again, I mean, it was accidental, right? But it happened anyway. And then the refs somehow, they didn't see it, but they guessed because Couture was hurt, which is a whole different conversation in and of itself, which I feel like there should be a review. If you can review offsides, if you can review goalie interference, which nobody knows what goalie interference is, which is a whole different conversation for a whole different day, but nobody knows what that is. Nobody. 0 people can figure out what that is. But if you can have rules put in place to have replays for that, you can have a replay for major penalties, and that one was not. However, with that being said, you give up the first goal 6 seconds in. All right, 3-1. All right, fine. They get 1. The building's alive, the team's alive, but you're still up 2 goals. Fine. Then they score again. It's 3-2. You know what? If I'm Gerard Gallant, I can't remember if they had a timeout or if they didn't have a timeout, but I feel like if you're Gerard Gallant, maybe calm your team down. Maybe do something, say something to get this team under control and get this penalty kill figured out. That didn't happen. 3-3. Still, that didn't happen. 4-3 Sharks. Now you let them score 4 goals on a singular power play. What happened to your penalty kill? Where did it go? Because it clearly wasn't on the ice for 5 minutes. Where did it go? Because it didn't exist. And somehow, because Martin Jones isn't the best goalie in the world, the Knights figured out a way to tie the game with 47 seconds left to go in regulation. But again, they put 6 forwards on the ice for that goal.
I saw that.
6 forwards. They didn't have a defenseman. They went all out and they scored. Take notes at Mike Babcock, at other coaches that don't want to do that. Take notes, because Vegas did that and they scored. And then San Jose won. I mean, listen, you can blame the penalty all game. You could blame the penalty. You could blame it on a lot of things. But at the end of the day, you blew a 3-1 lead in the series. You blew a 3-0 lead in the game. In Game 7, you give 4 power play goals. I mean, here's the thing: like, you can't. You can blame the penalty, but like, the team collapsed. The team utterly collapsed, and you can't do that in the playoffs. And that's why San Jose advanced to round 2 to play Colorado. You can't collapse like that. You can't.
No, you can't. And I think this is a perfect example of where the two sides of an argument are in theory correct. I think that penalty being called was a complete example of, oh my God, there's blood on the ice. We have to do something.
Yes.
The fans are booing us. The Sharks are irate, even though most of them probably didn't even see the play. That was a total thing of like, oh my God, we got to do something. He's bleeding out of the back of his head, out of the back of his helmet, which I've looked at the replay. I watched it. I didn't see the penalty live. I tuned in right after, ironically, because I was just doing some Bruins sound. But I saw in the replay, it's like his shoulder hit the ice and then his head hit it. But at any rate, a lot of times when players lose draws, they kind of push through. But again, that's not really 5 minutes. That's max 2. I don't even know why. Like, that was the 5 minutes. That got 3 extra minutes because there was blood. That's why. And you can't tell. I mean, I think Pavelski just kind of lost his balance. I don't even think he can cross-check him that hard. I think basically Pavelski lost his balance, and then Stassi was trying to get out of the way or trying to get out as well, and he kind of hit him as well as he was falling. But then you also look at the other side and go, all right, you can't give up 4 shorthanded goals in the span of literally 4 minutes in a third period of Game 7. You can't. And then Gallant's got to call a timeout after that first one, or at least after the second one. I mean, really? Like, that baffled me, because that's fireable. That is Grady Little not pulling Pedro Martinez at Yankee Stadium in Game 7 of the ALCS in 2003. That is fire. I mean, they won't fire him because he's been incredibly successful, and that team's just a well-oiled machine. I don't think this will really sidetrack them that much. But come on. I mean, what's funny is the Sharks are such a choking team. They're the definition of chokers in the NHL. I think the Lightning are kind of taking that over. But
yes.
the Sharks
Probably.
are chokers. And the fact that they were allowed to come back from a 3-1 series deficit and a 3-0 series deficit goal deficit in the game is crazy to me. I mean, the building was out of it. The third goal that Vegas scored trickled through Martin Jones. Jones looked like crap. Jones is so overrated. It's not even funny.
He's not good.
He's Michael Leighton in 2010. That was his 2016 run to the Cup.
Sure.
It's Michael Leighton in 2010. But I just look at that, and there was, first of all, that third period was the best third period I've seen in a long time, maybe ever. Except Bruins Leafs in 2013 Game 7 might have been better, but that was unbelievable. And the fact that Vegas had the mental fortitude to score on that empty netter to when the goalie was pulled at the end of the game to tie it up, that was crazy in itself. Like, the fact that they came back after giving up 4 straight goals in 4 minutes to score like that is huge. I know Marchessault was pissed after the game, and rightfully so. I mean, if I was a Vegas Golden Knight fan or player, I would be irate. I mean, that penalty you could argue ended your season. I think also the shorthand, but there was a lot of blame in that game, and I mean, my belief is that shouldn't have been a 5-minute penalty. I would debate even maybe not even being a penalty. But then again, it's like you can't give up 4 shorthanded goals.
No.
So all I'll say is if I was a Vegas player, I would be irate today, and rightfully so.
there's a lot to be angry about. I mean, you could be angry at the refs, you could be angry at the team, and in both situations you could be right. But again, I mean, there's zero possibility. Like, you can't be giving up 4 power play goals at a single penalty. You just can't. There's no. I mean, obviously, you never want to do that to begin with. That's kind of the point. You want to kill off the penalty. But it's a game 7. I mean, what happened? Where did the penalty kill go? It was fine all series, and then it just kind of disappeared. It was almost a 5-on-0 for those 5 minutes. Because I mean, Fleury didn't play well. The team didn't play well. Nobody played well, and then it just disappeared. The 3-0 lead, the confidence, everything just kind of disappeared. 6 seconds into the power play for San Jose. I mean, it's a disaster, and Vegas, they didn't even the Mark Stone trade. I still can't argue that it was a bad move because Mark Stone did very well in the series, and he's also, I think, like 28, 29 years old. Like, he is in his prime right now, locked up for 8 more years. He's going to be great for a long time for Vegas, so it's not like that trade was bad. You know, Ottawa got a great defenseman in Eric Brandstrom, but to suggest that, the Knights shouldn't have made those deals or whatever, I feel like that's just lazy. That's a lazy narrative, because those trades worked out real well for the Knights. It's just a 5-minute lapse in understanding the game of hockey. I mean, I don't know what they were doing on the ice for those 5 minutes. But
Fleury on those goals, not to interrupt, came out too far on a lot of them.
Yes.
I mean, I don't remember who scored it, but I think it was like the 3rd goal. I mean, it was just a wrist shot, and it got right past him, like on his. I think it was blocker side. I don't remember the goals exactly. I was trying to do other stuff as the game was going on.
Sure.
Ironically enough, when I was watching that game last night, I'd watch it for like a few like 30 or 40 seconds, and then I'd go back to my computer and do something, and then I'd hear the goal horn going off, and I'd be like, oh my God. And I missed like every goal live, but I mean, I was watching the game still, but it's just, I mean, that's one of those games where it's like, I want to show that to other sports fans who aren't into hockey and be like, look at what the NHL playoffs is. Like, look at that. You lose, I mean, not to disrespect the NBA, but to disrespect the NBA.
Hey man, hey! Don't be disrespecting my job here. Let's not disrespect the NBA.
Oh no. But what I'm saying is, none of their first round series have gone past 3-1, except for the Spurs and the Nuggets. I think that's correct. Whereas in the NHL, you have teams coming back willy-nilly from 3-1, and you have these exciting series. I mean, there's Game 7 going on as we speak. So I think that goes to show, in my opinion, there's nothing better start to finish than the NHL playoffs. I think like the Super Bowl is obviously the Super Bowl. The NBA Finals, when it's like when it was LeBron versus Steph Curry and the Warriors, it was very intriguing. Even though for a couple of those years, the Warriors steamrolled them. And then in baseball, it's like fine. But no, I think that is such a model game. Like, that's a first round Game 7, and it was incredible entertainment, incredible theater, incredible television. I loved every second of it. If I was a fan of the Sharks or the Knights, though, I mean, my God, I'd be on the edge. I'd need a defibrillator.
It was a wild Game 7. So the matchups are almost set in stone here. The Caps and the Hurricanes are going to double overtime as we record this episode. Obviously, this is going to go up on Thursday, so if you're listening on Thursday or beyond, I guess, you already know who's going to win and you know what the matchups are and all that. But we are right now awaiting the start of double overtime. So we don't know exactly who's going to play the Islanders in round 2, but at the onset I said the Capitals are going to win. I mean, but But this is such a tight game right now that my heart says Carolina, my brain says Washington. I'm getting mixed signals. I don't know what's going on. The NBC doesn't know what's going on. There's just mayhem everywhere, and this is a death match until the end right now. But the Caps are up 3-1. They were up 2-0. They were up 3-1, and the Canes came back. It's 3-3. I mean, this is an absolutely insane Game 7. I mean, whoever wins is gonna play the Islanders round 2 pretty much immediately afterwards. They play a Game 1 on Friday, regardless of who wins. So they don't have a whole lot of rest here in between games, which is great for the Islanders. Is great for Columbus, who it has now been in Miami for like what, a week and a half, just kind of chilling, just kind of resting.
Sound like the New York Giants.
All right. Well, there's no boat picture, right? So as long as they don't have that boat picture, it's everything is fine. But Columbus has been resting, healing, waiting for the Bruins as they and the Leafs were killing each other over who's going to make it to round 2. The Columbus Blue Jackets were like, all right, well, let's, they're tapping their watches. They're like, all right, well, let's get going here. Can we figure this out? But that's going to be a great series. Columbus and Boston. I mean, obviously, like most people, I chose Tampa Bay over Columbus. And now that Columbus swept, that's the matchup that I'm like, I don't even know who to pick in that situation, because obviously the favorite is Boston. The favorite is almost always Boston. But now that Columbus has swept a 62-win team, you take a look at that matchup and you're like, I don't know I don't know who to pick, because Columbus just destroyed the best team in hockey by far. Sweep, and Boston's coming off a tough 7-game series. This might be a toss-up.
Yeah, no, it is. And the reason I picked the Bruins in this is because the Blue Jackets beat the Lightning because they were just the more physical team. They out hit them. The Blue Jackets are a bigger team, which Chara necessarily does better with, because he's a bigger guy. He doesn't have to chase them like he's chasing Marner and Kapanen and William Nylander around the ice. I mean, these are guys he's better at containing. This is a weird series, though, because the Blue Jackets on paper are actually one of the best teams in hockey. I mean, they have a great defense, of course. Seth Jones, Wenberg. On offense, they are tremendous. They added a ton at the deadline. They went all in. And they have Bobrovsky, who's one of the best goalies in the world. So it's like, the fact they were even an 8 seed, was pretty much because of chemistry. They got all these new guys, Duchesne, Dzingel, and it's like you got to incorporate them. They couldn't really find their footing for a while, and they did at the end of the year. I think they're better than an 8 seed, like they just are. And I think what the Bruins are going to have to do in this series, they're going to have to obviously be just as physical. I mean, Columbus has guys like Josh Anderson who hit like crazy, but they can also score, which reminds me of, 2011 Milan Lucic. Just hits hard, he'll grind you down, he'll score on you. There's a lot of things about this series that might not make a lot of sense. I think I picked Bruins in 6, but I think it's going to be a total battle of attrition, because they are just going to be going head to head. On the topic of rest, though, I will say this. I don't think it's a bad thing that the Bruins are, picking things up and now playing 2 days after the Toronto game, because it gives them a chance to not be complacent and sort of stay on a roll. I mean, they're coming out of this series hot. You have the Game 6 win, you have the Game 7 win, and then 2 nights later you're playing the Blue Jackets. Whereas the Blue Jackets, their momentum's still going, but it feels like a while since that Game 4. So things have sort of wound down. They've had time to heal, obviously, but at the same time, that all-in mentality, they've had time to rest. And just personally speaking with the Bruins, the Bruins had a tough time to start that Maple Leaf series because they were resting guys to end the season, and it kind of took them off their track. And I wonder if that's going to happen with the Blue Jackets. But I cannot wait. This series, I think, is the Blue Jackets and Bruins obviously aren't rivals. But I think after this series, people are going to be like, oh my God, like that is a great, great matchup.
By the way, Sacramento Lightning just took a delay game penalty. So this is going to be...
I just looked at the TV for that because I just finished my take. I just saw that.
This is going to be a wild 2 minutes, and obviously this episode is going to go up after the game, so this is not going to be not going to be news for anyone tomorrow. But for us right now, this is wild.
Who do you pick?
I mean, my heart's saying Carolina, my brain's saying Washington. Like I don't know. This is just a game that, I mean, this is peak Game 7. Just play until someone just shoves it into the net. Like this, the Caps obviously have a great power play. I mean, the sky is blue and the grass is green. This is going to be a wild minute 40 here. Dallas St. Louis. I had this matchup going into when the playoffs first were about to get started. I picked these two teams to move on, and I then also picked St. Louis to beat Dallas, and I'm sticking to that. I think St. Louis beats Dallas probably in 6 or 7. I don't think it's going to be a short series. It's going to be one of those back and forths because Dallas has Ben Bishop. They have great defense, but St. Louis can score, and they also have a pretty solid defense and Jordan Binnington, who has shown that he can stay on his head when needed. So, I mean, Ben Bishop has been absolutely fantastic in the first round of the playoffs. He's been fantastic all season. One of the 3 Vezina Trophy candidates. And that's going to be a incredible series. But I do think at the end of the day, the Blues will probably beat the Stars in 6 or 7 games. And also, for the Avs and Sharks series, I think the Avs might win in 5 games.
Agreed.
I mean, this again might be a hot take because I also did say Vegas is going to sweep the Sharks, and to be fair, they almost did. It was 3-1. They almost did, and then they imploded. Which it's more on Vegas not playing well than the Sharks playing well, if that makes any sense. But I do think the Avs might pull this one out because they dominated Calgary. Let's be honest with ourselves here.
Unbelievable.
Colorado dominated Calgary. Calgary looked like a terrible team, and Colorado just absolutely just won a lot of the puck battles. Calgary looked real bad, and Colorado, I mean, it wasn't easy, but they made it look pretty easy. And they might do light work of San Jose too, because again, Martin Jones isn't gonna magically get great. He showed up in games 5 and 6, but if San Jose has any shot of winning this series, Martin Jones has to show up in games 1, game 2, game 3, game 4, and every other game that is deemed necessary in this series. And if he doesn't, well, then Colorado's going to take this one pretty easily. And I now have St. Louis and Colorado battling for that Western Conference spot to play for the Cup.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll start with St. Louis. I think the fact that St. Louis was last place on January 1st, it's just because of fate. I feel like their story is so good. Jordan Binnington coming onto the scene. It feels like they are like primed for the Western Conference Finals, maybe more. I think they get past Dallas. I don't think it's easy. Ben Bishop's been unbelievable this year. A really great story to watch as he sort of revitalized his career. And then on the other side, San Jose and Colorado, what's so funny is I don't think a player's stock went down more in the first round than Johnny Gaudreau's. Johnny Gaudreau looked horrible in that first round. I mean, there were a few breakaways there where he just missed the net in big-time situations, just didn't come up big. And I think the most underrated player in hockey is Nathan McKinnon. He's a gem. He's a gem, and no one really sees him because he's out west on a Colorado team that doesn't get a lot of attention because they're okay. I mean, they're making noise now, but they're just, they get by. But he's out west. A lot of people out east aren't staying up that late during the season to watch him. I think our younger generation knows him because of Instagram highlights and Twitter highlights. But I think people who just kind of watch TV don't see a lot of him. He is nasty. He has arguably the best shot in hockey. And I think Cale Makar, who's a UMass Amherst guy, I love Cale. That's why I'm pulling for the Avs in the West because of Cale.
Showing your bias there, Evan? Come on.
Oh, 100% biased. I will admit it. Cale Makar, watching him these past 2 years at UMass has been unbelievable because he was a man amongst boys. He was when a Mite A would get called down to like the Mite C team, or when a kid on the best team would get called down to like the worst team, that was Cale. I mean, Cale just skated around kids like they were nothing, and that's sort of what he's done. What he did in the first round of the Flames. I mean, he came in, he scored that goal. The way he cycles the puck in the offensive zone, the way he gets involved is he's a fourth forward, and it's the same way he played in college. His game is translated perfectly thus far to the NHL. Now, that's also because teams don't have a lot of film on him. But he has been cycling it well. I think he'll be able to do that against San Jose, even though they have Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson back there. Erik Karlsson's a fourth forward as well.
Erik Karlsson can't skate. He's broken. That's what I mean. He is a broken man. So broken. I don't even know how he's dressing. That's how injured he is right now.
Yeah. No, I think he's soft. But I think the Avs are going to just have so much. You think
Erik Karlsson's soft?
No, I think he's soft in his own end. I don't mean injury. Oh, well,
yeah, no, that's true.
He gets injured.
That's true.
I feel like he gets injured a lot. He plays through it. He played through a broken foot. I should have prefaced that. I'm glad you actually said that. He played through a broken foot, so he's not soft in that way. I mean, he gets injured frequently, and in his own zone, he's really not effective.
True.
Or as effective as he should. As effective as his standing on his team is. But at any rate, I think that the Avs have a lot of firepower on offense. That line of Rantanen, Landeskog, and McKinnon is unbelievable. I mean, my God. But yeah, no, I think you're gonna have the Avs and the Blues come out of the West, or in the Western Conference Finals. And then in the East, I think you have the Bruins and the Islanders look good, man.
Yeah,
I mean, they look good. We're talked about a lot in the first round because they sort of just stepped over the Penguins, who are the Penguins, but they weren't a high seed, so it's like whatever. But still, Crosby and Malkin and Chris Letang and a lot of those guys, they looked good. So what I find ironic is, and I'll circle back to this, John Tavares met with 5 teams this offseason: the Bruins, the Stars, the Sharks, the Islanders, and the Maple Leafs. What's the one team out of those 5 that is not advancing to the next round? The team he's on, the Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
It's so funny that that's happened and that the John Tavares storyline lives on through the second round of the playoffs, even though he's not even in it.
I mean, you can't make this stuff up. You really can't. And I said this a couple weeks ago when I did my round 1 predictions on the show. I said that the Islanders would beat the Caps in round 2 and make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, although I did say that the Lightning were going to beat them. Now it's a matter of now I feel like I have to pick Columbus to go to the Cup, because I mean they beat a 62-win team. I mean, yeah, now I gotta root for them until the end, right? So
I don't blame you. I think there's a total chance that Columbus, they beat the top. I mean, what a story that would be.
Yeah.
Imagine if it was like Columbus St. Louis in the finals, and you have Columbus, who's an 8 seed, who took down the best team in the past 30 years, against the Blues, who were last place on January 1st. I think it totally could happen. I don't think it's necessarily great for growing the game of hockey because you have Columbus and St. Louis in it, and Columbus isn't exactly a top market, and St. Louis is a solid market, but not maybe
here's my counterpoint to that, and I don't mean to cut you off, but here's my counterpoint to that. I feel like smaller markets doing well is fantastic for the game of hockey, because those small markets and in surrounding areas, that's how kids and people that haven't watched the sport before get into the sport. If the Bruins get in the final, well, I mean, the entire state of Massachusetts loves hockey anyway. So growing the sport in that regard isn't gonna do as well as, let's say, if Columbus makes it to the final. I mean, I would wager that the sport of hockey in the state of Ohio would explode in the following years.
100% agreed. What I'm saying is, though, in other markets, so getting other markets to watch that Stanley Cup.
Sure.
So that's the tough part. I mean, what Vegas has done for Vegas and the desert area, I love. I mean, again, I played hockey, grew up in Massachusetts where hockey's huge. I love seeing the game spread. I love when the Southern California teams are good because that is going to help Southern California hockey. Vegas, same thing in the desert. But it's tough to get outside ratings from other markets. That's sort of what I meant by it. I think it's great for Columbus to get 5,000 people at a practice. Is incredible. To fill up the lower bowl is incredible. But I just mean outside of those markets. Obviously, Columbus, if they're in the Cup, their ratings will be great. It'll impact the kids, which is awesome. But I think outside of that market, it's a little tougher to garner than if, say a Boston or a New York or Chicago or an LA team was in it. But no, I totally know what you mean by that, and I totally agree.
I think it's going to be St. Louis and Colorado in the Western Conference Finals, and that matchup hinges on a few things, right? It hinges on, can McKinnon, Rantanen, and Landeskog continue to dominate the ice the way they did against Calgary? Because if they do, they're going to make short work of the Blues blue line.
The
Bruins, yes, the Bruins. Because that blue line's good. Don't get me wrong, and Binnington is a great goalie. But if McKinnon, Rantanen, and Landeskog can continue to decimate teams the way that they have been doing all season, and the way that they've decimated Calgary, well, the Blues have another thing coming. But on the flip side, if Grubauer regresses to the way that he played in the Avs losing streak towards the end of the season, and they have to put Varlamov in, and he's not so sharp, kind of like he wasn't during that same losing stretch where neither goalie could win a game to save their career. If both goalies play like that, then St. Louis is going to pull this one out. But if Grubauer plays well, or if Varlamov needs a game and he steps in and plays well, then it's going to be Colorado for the Cup. But it really hinges on how strong that goaltending is. If they falter even a little bit, that opens the door for St. Louis to come in and steal the series. It really hinges on how the goaltenders in Colorado play. If they play well, they're going to the Cup final.
Yeah, and I also think that when it comes to the Avalanche, they hinge so much on that offense at the top. If a team can figure out how to stop that, you pretty much kind of have them beat. And Grubauer does raise some concerns for me. But yeah, no, I think this is very interesting because the teams that are moving on are not the ones you expect. I mean, aside from the Bruins and the Sharks, not really. Because even though they were a home team, no one really expected the Sharks to win.
And they shouldn't
So really
have.
the Bruins, if the Bruins and if the Capitals won tonight, but if the Capitals lose, the Bruins are the only team and maybe the Islanders too. Bruins and Islanders are the only teams that were really expected to win. But again, to backtrack, the Islanders weren't supposed to be good this year. So you have all these storylines of like teams that are underdogs that are succeeding. The Bruins are the only team that was like, okay, we expected them to be in the second round. We just didn't expect them against
Carolina just scored. Wow. Carolina just scored. It's over.
Oh my God.
Oh
Who
man.
scored that?
Wow. That's incredible.
He took down the Cup champs.
Wow. This is live. The TV is on right now. We're watching it as we're doing this show. And the Carolina Hurricanes have advanced to the second round of the playoffs, knocking out the defending Stanley Cup champions, the Washington Capitals, in 7 games, double overtime.
Is it Justin Williams who scored it?
I didn't see who scored it. It might have been. I can't tell. All I know is that they scored, and now there's a celebration going on the ice. But wow, I mean, you talk about adversity. You talk about the Carolina Hurricanes being down and out for a lot of the season, and then they went on that run. And you have Rod Brindamore, and they just don't quit. And I mean, this. Here's the replay. It might have been Justin Williams, actually. I think it was Justin Williams. Yeah, it went off.
Oh my God!
It went off the inside of the right pad of Braden Holtby. Yeah, I think that might be Justin Williams' goal, which is what I mean. That's hockey, right? That I'm gonna steal the Carolina Hurricanes commentator John Forsland's thing here, but that's hockey, baby. I mean, that's what a wild way to win the first round. That's incredible. And also, I feel like that's a great way to end this episode. Also, before I let you go, I mean, if it's Colorado in the final, and either the Blue Jackets or the Bruins or the Islanders, or I guess the Hurricanes now, because that's gonna be a wild series to watch. Hurricanes and the Islanders go at it. I mean, who do you think still has the best shot of winning the cup?
I mean, it's funny. My brain wants to say the Bruins because I think that they're the most logical. But the way this playoffs have gone, it's like all these upsets are happening. All these random acts are happening where it's like you can't tell. You don't know. So part of me thinks the Blue Jackets will beat the Bruins. But I mean, I picked the Bruins to beat the Blue Jackets. But I mean, I think the way that this is headed, I mean, I'm going to say Bruins come out of the East because that was my original pick. I'm going to stick with it. You know, I know the team better than any of the other teams that are in there, so I'm going to go with the Bruins. Coming out of the West, I'm going to go with St. Louis. They're the more complete team. You know, they have solid leadership. And then I think in the end, I'm going to go with the Bruins. I know you're going to think I'm a homer. I picked the Bruins to win the cup anyways at the beginning of the playoffs. I'm going to stick with it. But I'm going to tell you right now, I do that hesitantly because what's happening around the league, you have Carolina and the Islanders, you have Columbus, you have the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche, all these teams. I mean, it's crazy. That's why I'm so excited for this. As a hockey fan, as a guy who loves hockey in the NHL playoffs, I cannot wait to sort of see what happens over these next 4 weeks because, I mean, you just have to sit back and enjoy it. I mean, this is crazy. Double overtime. The Hurricanes were supposed to be crap this year. They traded away Elias Lindholm. They got Dougie Hamilton.
They traded Jeff Skinner for a sandwich.
Noah Hannafin. I mean, these guys they trade away and they go to the second round.
Go Avs, go! Let's go Canes. I mean, let's go Jackets. I don't know, man. This is so wide open. I don't know. It's anyone's game right now, and I feel like this is hockey at its finest. You just don't know. It's fantastic hockey. Game 7, double overtime, Mr. Game 7, Justin Williams with the double overtime goal, sending Carolina into Game 2. What a story that is! I mean, there's no point in picking a winner because it does. There's no favorite anymore. I mean, who knows, right? The favorites are all knocked out at this point. I feel like we'll reconvene in about a week and a half and 2 weeks and see how poorly our takes have aged. But this is wild. I mean, I guess I have to pick the Blue Jackets, right? Because they beat the Lightning. But I don't know. I'm not putting money on it or on any team for that matter. This is just wide open, and this is fantastic for the sport of hockey. Evan, this has been truly a pleasure. I mean,
that was not to cut you off. That was not Justin Williams' goal. That was Brock McGinn. Brock McGinn tipped it. That didn't go through. It got tipped. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but just to clarify for the listeners, it was Brock McGinn.
No, you're fine. No, I appreciate you doing that because I didn't see the tip. I just saw Justin Williams' shot. I didn't see the tip, but I appreciate the fact check because what is journalism without fact checking? Facts, all facts, and very little printer. Evan, this has been awesome. Plug your social media, plug your website. This has been an incredible conversation. I mean, with our live takes of the Canes and Caps game, with our other takes. I mean, this has been awesome, and I appreciate you coming on. Plug your stuff.
You can follow me on Twitter at @eMarinofsky. Just look up Evan Marinofsky on Twitter. You'll find it. The Marinofsky Report website. If you go to Bruins at Bruins CLNS on Twitter and follow us there, That's the work I do along with some other people at CLNS for the Bruins. And over at clnsmedia.com, you can find all the Bruins stuff. And then I'm very fortunate to be on WEEI.com, Bruins playoff team. Me, Matt Kalman, and Scott McLaughlin. Follow all our stuff over at WEEI.com. Greatly appreciated. And obviously, Andrew, what you're doing is tremendous. And I do listen to this podcast. I do love this podcast. And I loved this conversation. This was a ton of fun.
Evan, you're doing terrible things to my ego. I just want you to know that. And I'm reading my timeline right now, and apparently, according to @Jackie_Redmond, who is the host at NHL and MLB Network, she tweeted out just a couple minutes ago that all 4 division winners eliminated in round 1. That's never happened before. And Justin Williams has 15 points in Game 7s, including the assist tonight, most by any player in NHL history, according to @Andrew G. Forbes, friend of the show. But yeah, Evan, this has been awesome. Really appreciate you coming on again. I'll talk to you again real soon.
Sounds good. See you later.
Awesome. This has been episode number 45 of Chel Squared, episode 46 next week. Coming up on a year. Man, episode 52 in just a few weeks. It's already been almost a year. That's wild. I'll talk to you next week.